Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panelists. Every time I stand before a group of taxpayers in my district, my constituents, the question comes up, Congressman, what are you doing, and what is Congress doing, and what is the federal government doing to cut waste, fraud, and abuse? I don't think there's a single congressman that does not get that question when they go home. So I deeply appreciate the fact that you're at the hearing today, that the hearing has been called for this purpose. I appreciate your comments because I think this is the purpose of Congress. This is oversight, and I've learned a great deal today. And to our constituents, this Congress is going to do something with your help on this fraud and abuse, because I don't think anybody here would deny that there is fraud and abuse going on. For Mr. Miller, when a person accepts a refundable tax payment and they receive the cash and they've done so fraudulently, have they committed a crime?
I suppose some have. There's civil fraud as well as criminal fraud. So not necessarily in all cases, depending on various things that I'm less familiar with than I should be.
But it's undoubtable that when they do receive that refundable tax credit, if they don't deserve to receive it and they're audited, they have in fact created for themselves a tax liability because they owe the money back.
Correct.
When the tax liability is created, does that tax liability take any kind of precedence over any other tax liability that the person, that any other taxpayer owes? Is the collection activity different from a collection activity from someone who owes $2,700 on last year's taxes and have not paid?
So if I could rephrase the question, if I think I understand it, in our collection operations, is $2,700 regardless of whether it's EITC?
Yes. Is this a priority?
It's not a priority. Whether it actually ends up being moved up in line will depend on what else is there and what our determination of the collectability of that amount is.
So the collection activity will fall under the same criteria as all collection activity, and you're going to look at each individual taxpayer and say, is this a collect? How likely are we going to be able to collect this money back?
Correct.
And do you take the next step and say that this person or this taxpayer, whether it be corporate, energy, earned income credit, any of the tax refundable programs we've talked about today, does that person then earn the same kind of treatment that any taxpayer would have if they owed a tax liability?
I will note the EITC, as was mentioned earlier, there is a recertification rule that can occur. We have the ability to ban a person from EITC under all these things are statutory for either 2 or 10 years. There are things that we can do that are different with respect to this tax liability than others.
Well, to the taxpayers in my district that consider it a duty to pay their taxes and to pay what they owe, it is demoralizing to them to pick up the newspaper or see a report that's given that reports these kinds of obvious frauds. It's demoralizing for them to pick up the Wall Street Journal or any newspaper and read that prisoners or people from that don't deserve the home buyer credit are getting it. I don't give any more weight to the earned income credit as I do the energy credits or the home buyer credit. Fraud is fraud. I agree that the preparer, we should begin to look more closely at the preparer, because in my area, I believe most of the fraud is aided and abetted by the preparer. In fact, I pick up the newspaper and you can see in the classified ads or on late night cable. I'm a night owl, so you can see the preparers are enticing people into the scheme and showing them how to get the money, and they're charging them exorbitant amounts of money, and the benefit to the taxpayer ends up that they actually are accruing a tax liability that probably will brand them for years. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. I want to thank all the witnesses for being here today and providing testimony. This has been very helpful